going on, folks? This is Mr. Colion Noir, and this is my Gen 4 Glock 26, and this is the Springfield Xdm chambered in 40. The Glock 26 and the Glock 27 are in essence the exact same size. So for purposes of the review, we're going to assume this is a Gen 4 Glock 27. Now I do have a Gen 3 Glock 27 here, so I'll be pulling this in and out. I do like the way the Generation 4 Glocks look, especially the Generation 4s. Now, the Generation 3s aren't bad either, but they're really plain. There's no fanciness whatsoever to these things as far as the Gen 3 is concerned, but I do like them. Now, with the Generation 4, they've had a little bells and whistles here and there to kind of spruce up the looks a little bit, but for the most part, I think it looks a lot better than the Gen 3. Now, in comparison to the Xdm, as I said before, I call this the little pocket tank because it's the way it looks. It's really boisterous. It looks very sturdy. It looks mean, but it's also very, very busy. And I'm not against a busy looking gun, but this is really busy. And considering that my taste has shifted from preferring things that are a little bit more busy to things that were a little less busy or simplistic, that were more simplistic in terms of aesthetics were concerned, I'm gonna lean towards the Glock simply because I personally have a preference for simple looking guns now. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the way this looks, even though it's a little bit more busy for my taste. I can't say that this is a bad looking gun, but though I lean more towards the Glock, I will say that it is really, really, really neck and neck, because I do think this is a cool looking gun. Especially, I do think a lot of the lines with the indentations and the markings and things like that kind of add to the character of the gun and kind of actually makes it really unique, considering that there are a number of guns out here that are trying to mimic the Glock for the most part. I think with the design of this, it makes it stand out a little more so than any other designs out there, and that it makes it not a Glock copy, so to speak. So from a look standpoint, I'm gonna call it a close race, but I'm gonna have to stick with the Gen 4, just because from a civilian carry standpoint, I like my guns to be simple. I don't want all that busyness and extra stuff going on. So I'll go with the Gen 4. Now, if we were talking about the Gen 3, right? From an ergonomic standpoint, the Gen 3 is fat. You know, it leaves much to the imagination as far as any details on this gun that were designed for ergonomics sake. Better in my opinion. Now, the Gen 4 with the RTF grip included on it kind of gives it a better system for ergonomics and the way it would feel in hand. The only problem with it is that it's still a Glock. It's still shaped and based on the same design as a Glock Generation 3. And though it does come with the back straps, I don't utilize the back strap, so that does nothing for me. And I guess for those who have bigger hands, the back strap would be a good added measure for the ergonomics. But when we switch over and start talking about the XDM on the other hand, I can tell you that it is smooth. Like, that's what it feels like in hand. Even though it looks like it's built like a tank, the gun feels smooth, and the grip really kind of conforms to the palm swells in your hand, and I think that's a good thing. So as far as comfort is concerned, the Xdm kind of stands above the Glock in that regard. Now, the serrations are a bit more aggressive than the Glock, but they're also still comforting, which is weird considering. Now, with the Generation 4, the stippling on this Glock is very aggressive, and it gets the job done from the standpoint of being able to grip your gun with comfort and having some security, knowing the gun's not going to fly out of your hand. Now, not to say that the Xdm doesn't have that as well, but it's not as aggressive as the Glocks. But from a comforting standpoint, I'd have to give it up to the Xdm. All right, now the trigger on the Xdm to me is the better trigger between these two guns, and here's why. Though the Glock, I have a special place in my heart for the trigger on the Glock simply because I run a Glock. That's what I carry and what I mainly use. So I've become accustomed to the trigger. And one thing I love about the Glock trigger is the real positive reset. You hear it and you feel it. You see? Like, I love that. I really, 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 really do. And I run the Glock, so I'm pretty partial to it. But I have to be honest, the trigger on the Springfield is a better trigger in my opinion. And here's why. It's modeled after the Glock with the same type of safe action trigger system on it, but it's a lot smoother. And the curvature on the actual trigger is a lot more comforting than, and not as sharp as the one on the Glock. It's a real smooth uptake, as you can see. It's smooth. It's butter smooth. Now the reset isn't as positive as the Glock, but it works. It really does. Now on the reset, it's not the trigger pull is not as sharp as the Glock. It's a little more mushy. It's like a weird combination between mushy and smooth. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. But initial take up is very, very, very smooth. With the Generation 4 Glock, what you get is some little minor improvements from the Generation 3. You get a larger magazine release, and then you also get the replaceable back straps. You can take the back straps, make them bigger. You take them all the way off, and the frame is a bit smaller than the Generation 3. And then you have your sights, and then you have your safe action trigger, and that's pretty much about it. Then you have your poor excuse for a chamber indicator. But other than that, there's nothing else to this gun as far as the features are concerned. But that's pretty much what the Glocks are known for, is the fact that they are pretty simple to use. The manual of arms is very simplistic. And that's actually one of the selling points of this gun. Now, for those of you who are looking for a little more oomph in terms of features, well, that's where the Xdm shines. And here's why. The Xdm has a lot of stuff to play with. First of all, you do have everything that the Glock has. You have the magazine release, you have a safe action type style trigger, and you also have your sights. Now, here's where things start to change a little bit. These sights are metal. They're not plastic like the Glock sights, which kind of adds to the quality of this gun. Not only that, you get the chamber indicator that actually sticks up. Sticks up just like that whenever there's a round in the chamber. So from that standpoint, that's a lot more effective than, say, the chamber indicator on a Glock, which is pretty much useless in my opinion. Now, on top of that, what you also get is, and some people would argue that these are not so much features, that they are safety measures, but you get the back grip safety, which basically requires you to get a perfect grip on the gun in order for it to be actionable. Then you also get a chamber, and then you also get a cocking indicator to let you know whether or not this gun is cocking. So what ends up happening is when the gun is fired, no more pin. So you rack it, and the pin is back. So fire, which I can't do because I haven't applied the grip safety, and rack it back, and there's your cocking indicator to let you know that this gun is indeed cocked. So you also get a Picatinny rail on this particular firearm. On the Xdm 40, you got a Picatinny rail, which you don't get on the Glock. On the Glock, it's just nothing. It's just what it is. It's a carry gun, so I guess they figured they didn't need to put a Picatinny rail on it. But it's good to have the option sometimes. So from that standpoint, the Picatinny rail, along with all the other added features with the match barrel, things of that sort, they put this gun ahead of the Glock, in my opinion, as far as features from a quantity standpoint. Whether or not you like these features on your gun is left to be told. That's down to the individual. But from a quantity standpoint, there are more features on the Xdm than there are on the Glock. As far as quality is concerned, I'm just going to be very quick about this. From a quality standpoint, the Springfield Xdm beats the Glock hands down. Flat out. There's just really nothing to be said. Now, that's not to say that the Glock is a pushover in terms from a quality standpoint, but man, the Xdm, I mean, look at these sights. Look at these sights. The metal sights. Not only that, you get a match braid barrel, and then they let you know because it's on the gun. It's a match grade barrel. Also, You get a polished feed ramp. Can't beat that. On the box, not so much. Now granted, this is dirty, I've been shooting it, but the barrel on this gun, not the barrel, but the quality of this gun is exceptional. And you notice it the moment you pick it up. Everything feels really solid, really rock solid. Like you could take this gun and just do all types of things to it. Now don't get me wrong, the Glock has proven itself more above and beyond expectation. But from a quality standpoint, this does feel like a more expensive gun in hand. The gun doesn't feel rushed. It feels really good in your hand. I just love it. And just the quality of the parts and everything, down from the trigger to the sights to the match barrel, in combination with all of that and the attention to detail and how smooth and refined this gun is, I have to give it to the Springfield Xdm as far as the quality of these two guns. So, all right, now here's where things get a little tricky, so to speak. Well, not tricky, but blatant. And that's in regard to size and concealability. Compared to the Glock, in terms of size, let's say we take the Generation 3 Glock and compare them in size. You know, the Gen 4 is a little bit smaller, a little bit lighter, but for the most part, they're the same. The Xdm, on the other hand, is massive compared to the Glock 26 or the Glock 27, whatever happened. And it's not quite the size of a 19, but it is bigger, as you can see. Like it stands tall above the Glock 26 in almost every respect. Like it is a little bit longer. Just by a tad, it's a little bit longer, but it's really honestly bigger from a height standpoint. Like they're both at the same level on the bottom, and this is how much higher. The slide on this thing is massive. It really is, and I'm pretty sure that does a lot in terms of aiding in recoil. But for a carry gun, this gun's a bit big if you're talking about a subcompact. Now this is considered a compact in XDM line. They don't have a subcompact, but it's also it's not as big as the Glock 19. So in that regard, God, it's in a weird it's like in a weird middle state between the 26 and the 19. It's kind of like a mid subcompact or something to that degree. And it is thinner. I will give it that. It is a bit thinner than the actual Glock in terms of width, but and the grip frame, that is. But as far as height is concerned, this gun is big. It is. So it's not going to be as easy to conceal as this 26. I just don't think it will be. Usually the length of the barrel really doesn't make a difference from a concealability standpoint, but it's just that the slide is so high that you're going to notice this in your pants. You will. I'm pretty sure you get a good holster, you can make this disappear just like any other gun, but you're going to notice the difference between carrying this and carrying this. So in terms of size and concealability, I'm going to have to get to the Glock simply because it's a smaller gun. You really just can't beat that logic. So as far as concealment, Glock is where it is. Alright, there's no point drawing this out. I mean, at the end of the day, I prefer the Glock because that's the gun I carry. I'm a big fan of the Xdm though. Let's just don't confuse that at all, please. I love the Xdm and everything it stands for, basically. But I am partial to the Glock, and the Glock is where I'm going to stay for the moment until I get persuaded otherwise. But this is a great gun. The quality is immaculate. The stuff you get with this gun for the price point is amazing, especially considering that the Glock Gen 4s are pretty much almost at the same price point as these are now. This gun. So from that standpoint, I'm still in love with my Glock 26, but this is a great gun. By no means is this a second-rate gun. The quality is unmatched, and that's just the God-honest truth. So that's Mr. Colion Noir, and that's the Glock 26 and the Springfield Xdm, and I'm out.